Hello everyone. I want to start by thanking everyone who watches these videos. It really encourages me to continue. Having said my part, let's begin. Chapter 1. The panic attack that followed after initial realization ended as quickly as it had begun, after which began a thoughtful analysis of what was happening, and that drove me into melancholy. So, first of all, I died. How, when, and where? Fuck me if I know. I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember much about my past life at all. I lived somewhere in Russia, was a simple, unremarkable Slavic heterosexual guy, worked honestly, spent all my leisure time at my computer playing games or watching cartoons, and sometimes anime. That's all I could remember directly about myself. All other personal information about myself turned out to be almost completely wiped out. Fuck, I can't even tell where exactly I lived or what my marital status was. But all other information seems to have suffered only slightly. I could tell how computers work, or how to cook pork. I could briefly retell the plot of One Piece, or tell you what the Bottom Hotel was about, as one of our translators called it. And, of course, it wasn't too difficult for me to guess that I had somehow died, and my soul, instead of going where it was supposed to go after death, went to surf the interworld or something, and eventually ran into a fucking god, who is such a coincidence. Turned out to be the creator god of one different world, which somehow exactly repeats the universe of Hazbin Hotel. And no, I refuse to think about how the fuck the universe of Vivcy Pop cartoon turned out to be real, and how the fuck I ended up in it out of all the possible afterlife options. What makes me think that this is the universe of this particular cartoon? Well, to begin with, I'm in Adam's body, with all set of his memories intact. And it's such a fucking mess, actually, but more on that later. So, Adam's memories indirectly confirmed to me that this is exactly the universe of cartoon, started with Adam himself, who is exactly the same character as in cartoon, except with additional nuances, and ending with the rest of Heroes of Story. Lucifer, Lilith, Seraphim, Sarah, and Emily, Exorcists, Loot, and Veggie, Charlie, who was born relatively recently. All of them were known to Adam, and all information he knew, for the most part, coincided with what I knew from cartoon. If there were any deviations, they were minor at level of measurement errors. So yes, everything points to the fact that I met a local god, and he put me into body of one of the main assholes with instruction to fix everything. Of course, at first he asked, "Would you like to help me?" But I have a vague feeling that I've been fucked somewhere. Probably this is due to the fact that during my stay as a ghost or soul or whatever I was, my cognitive functions were, for lack of a more appropriate term, defective. I mean, I've been swimming in fucking nothing for who knows how long, and yet I literally didn't think about anything at all. And I only started thinking when I ran into that red shit with a woman's face. Speaking of red shit, what was that exactly? The very local incarnation of universal evil with a capital letter, which seeped into this universe after Eve devoured the forbidden fruit. Or is it some kind of phonic bullshit that local god spends all his time trying to contain outside of his world? Well, judging by Adam's memories, it's most likely option 1. He remembers that something red took over Eden and destroyed it just after that ill-fated fruit, although one does not exclude other. Well, anyway, thank you, God, for saving me from whatever that was. By the way, about Adam and his memories, it's kind of fucked up. Why? Well, because he lived or exists. Can we say that angels in paradise are alive if they died and now exist in the afterlife? For about 10 millennia, and in those very millennia he's seen a lot of fucked up shit, which I now perceive almost as my own experience. And Adam's life itself was fun. It all started with Lilith, his first wife. No, she wasn't fucked up, rather opposite. What she did that was fucked up. You see, she was literally created for Adam to impregnate her and to give birth. To give birth a lot and constantly. And, well, yes, that in itself is pretty fucked up. So, personally, I'm not at all surprised that she wasn't satisfied with the role of a living incubator, and she preferred to tell Adam screw off. But Adam himself, however, did not understand this and was very surprised by this development of events. As already mentioned, he was literally created to inseminate Lilith, and he knew it. So when he started demanding that Lilith fulfill her direct purpose and she turned him down, it was a real shock to him. to say the least, because in his eyes, she had betrayed her destiny in general and him in particular. And the worst part is that he was kind of right in his own way, at least from the point of view of his creators, seraphims. By the way, yes, they created him and Lilith in this universe, not God personally. God seemed to have only given birth to his first angels, and then he just gave out instructions to them. Anyway, in Adam's eyes, Lilith betrayed their goal because of some incomprehensible whim. The thought that perhaps he had aroused her dislike by his behavior, and thus alienated her from him, did not come to him for a very long time. And when it did, he rejected it. Although, to be fair, somewhere in back of his mind, he still had doubts that part of the blame for this still lay with him, but he never admitted it out loud. And it would be fine if Lilith just left Adam for Lucifer, who at that time actually was a seraphim, that is, one of those who participated in her creation. So, well, either not all seraphims participated in this, or Lucifer already had unhealthy tendencies back then. But nope, that was not the end of the story. After such a fiasco, seraphims scratched their heads in confusion, shrugged shoulders, and decided that, instead of forcing Lilith to do her duty, they just need to create another woman instead. And so they created Eve, and everything would be fine, except Lilith and Lucifer made a brilliant decision and fed Eve the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. That is, they did the one and only thing that seraphims forbade them to do at all. Adam didn't know exactly whose head had come up with such a bright idea, and he didn't really give a shit about such details, because this decision led to disaster. Who would have thought? As it turned out, this fucking fruit not only and not so much gave an understanding of good and evil, but served as a kind of door key for this very evil, which in this universe is not just an abstract concept, but a very concrete entity that existed somewhere out there, beyond the newly created world, reliably cut off by the Lord Almighty himself from infiltrating the creation of seraphims. But as soon as Eve devoured this cursed fruit, she immediately turned into a loophole for evil, through which it entered this world. Needless to say, it was fucked up. Oh, but that's just the beginning, because then interesting details popped up in Adam's memory that were unknown to me in my past, and that I found really disturbing. So, the main fuck-up didn't start right away. Eve, who ate that fruit, did not immediately show signs that she had somehow changed. In fact, in this universe, the whole thing came to light only after Cain killed Abel. If anyone doesn't know, these two are Adam's firstborn, and this event was a real shock for Adam, who at first did not even fully realize what had happened. And seraphims, to put it mildly, was freaked out even more with what happened, and so they began to try to figure it out. And while they were trying to figure out, Eve turned into a natural chthonic horror and destroyed Eden, after which she got fuck out to somewhere, and since then everyone still can't find her. Seraphims, who were completely fucking shocked by everything that had happened, nevertheless managed to find culprits responsible for that whole thing and sent both of them to hell as punishment. What's that? Where did hell come from? Oh, this is what Eden turned into after corrupted Eve frolicked there. Yeah, in this universe, Eden has turned into hell. Literally. Did I mention that it was fucked up? In general, after this fuck show, all children of Adam and Eve whom they managed to give birth to, and they were like a fucking lot, they created a new population after all, and who managed to escape from dying Eden, were infected with knowledge of good and evil, and as a result, exposed as a good, so for evil. I don't think it's necessary to explain what this led to. It's enough to recall our history and number wars with varying degrees of bloodshed, as well as all known vices of humanity. Anyway, something had to be done about this fuckery. For some reason, seraphims did not want to burn out the entire population at the root and start all over. Either ideology did not allow it, or they simply turned out to be too kind-hearted for this. They are angels, after all. But in the end, they decided, or God told them to do so. Adam didn't know such details. To make all humans mortal first, and then act according to the well-known scheme to all of you, all righteous in heaven, all sinners to hell. Well, I mean, sinners are the bearers of evil, which must be eradicated, so they must be sent to hell so that evil from there cannot spread further. It seems that it was originally supposed to find a way to purify souls of sinners from a taint of evil, but at some point seraphims abandoned this idea. They did not find a way to do that, so they simply abandoned sinners. Lilith and Lucifer then tried for many centuries and even millennia to prove to angels that all was not lost for sinners. But, alas, they also did not succeed. As for Adam himself, he was first made mortal as well as his offsprings, so that at initial stages he oversaw their formation, so they could lay foundation for a future civilization, and only after his descendants became more or less independent, he was allowed to ascend to paradise. And no, it was not a punishment for the fall, because in this universe he did not eat fruit. Eve didn't even offer him this damn fruit. So Adam, in fact, was simply charged with duties of the first king of humankind, so that he would rule over people instead of seraphims. Why couldn't they have assigned one of their own to this case? Well, who knows? Maybe they were just too afraid of catching an evil infection. This would explain why they rarely come down to earth. They are still afraid of it. Adam himself was not particularly happy about this turn, and to be honest, the man can be understood. His first wife left him because of whims, let's leave aside how justified, turned his second wife into a chthonic monster, and thereby destroyed his ideal home, Eden, yes. At the same time forever corrupting his children, which is why he and they were forced to vegetate on Earth and somehow survive, in fact, by creating a primitive communal system, because they didn't even have that then, and all this for what? Adam didn't know why Lilith and Lucifer had started all this mess, but he assumed that they did it just in spite the whole universe in general and him personally in particular. And honestly, based on both Adam's knowledge and my recollections of the topic, I can't say for sure if Adam was wrong in his assumption or not. Because seriously, why did Lilith and Lucifer give a fucking fruit to Eve? In the original, that is, the Bible, everything is unambiguous. Lucifer wanted ill to Adam and Eve, and therefore framed them for fall, and Lilith does not appear there at all, and she appears much later, in additions to biblical tales. But why did they start all this fuss here? To give free will to people, implying that before humanity didn't have free will? I'm sorry, but if we, in the sense of the first people, didn't have any free will, then why the fuck did Lilith go against the will of her creators? Doesn't this mean that she had free will initially? If so, then what was the grand plan of these arch traitors? No matter how much I puzzled over this question, from information I had it turned out that yes, Lilith was so angry with her ex-hubby that she decided to take revenge on him by giving to his new wife a curse fruit. But either something went wrong or everything went too far. But result, as they say, is obvious. Well, or is it just that I don't know some important details, without which this whole scheme does not make any sense? So Adam and his descendants were forced to live on earth, with only basic tools provided by seraphims, who said, "Learn to live independently. We have our hands full." Adam, who never needed to work in Eden at all, because, well, it was fucking Eden, doesn't found the situation particularly amusing, as well as the fact that he basically had to work with his hands. But, characteristically, he worked. Well, not so much with his hands as with his head, because he turned out to be a born king, which is not surprising. To be honest, seraphims may have originally planned to make him a leader of humankind, and therefore endowed him with necessary qualities. However, surprisingly, ruling over people did not bring him much joy, especially when it came to finding and punishing criminals, because back then Adam had not yet managed to defame himself to the extent that we saw in cartoon and his children, and even now he still perceived all of humanity as his own children. He loved them quite sincerely and took every squabble between them painfully. And back then he took murders especially violently. Memories of his firstborns were still fresh. And then they took him to heaven and made him an angel. Or, rather, he died and became an angel. For some time, he still descended to Earth to visit his descendants, but as time passed, human civilization grew and expanded, and after a few generations, all those people who evoked a positive emotional response from Adam just disappeared. But there was a plenty negative emotions humanity caused in him. One of his duties as angel for a while was to keep an eye on his offsprings. So he keep it, and he fucking hate what his descendants were doing. At the initial stages of history, he even went down to stop a very egregious bullshit and explain why this was not allowed, but to no avail. Unsurprisingly, at some point he finally spat and stopped going down, and why he would keep going. People will do bullshit anyway, no matter how many times you explain to them that it's bad, and they'll get what they deserve after they die on Earth anyway. And remembering all that Adam had seen over the millennia, yeah, I'm getting disgusted myself. Wars, genocide, tortures, mass executions. And this is just the tip of iceberg. In this context, you really begin to look at the annual exterminations in a new way, as well as the fact that Adam gets such sincere pleasure from them. In his place, I would probably also be happy to rid of mass murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and other moral freaks from face of universe. And since we're mentioning exterminations, let's talk about them as well, because everything was fun with them, too. So, about 4,000 years have passed since the Great Fall. Lucifer and Lilith are sitting quietly and peacefully cooking in the former Eden, along with the constantly arriving souls of sinners, while the first major wars are going on Earth, as a result of which the first large empires are to arise. Another 500 years or so, and humanity should enter the era of antiquity. Nothing foreshadowed, as they say. But suddenly a message from Lucifer comes to heaven from hell with extremely disturbing news. Remember when I said that hell was formerly Eden? So, when Adam and his children had to flee from corrupted Eve, not everyone managed to get out of there in time. And those who did not get out, as it turned out, not only survived, but also gave offspring, which, under influence of hell corruption, became succubi, imps, hellhounds, and other fiends of hell, despite the fact that sinners themselves cannot reproduce in principle. And it turned out that these same infernal fiends can claim ownership of sinners' souls through deals, and the more souls they get into their possession, the stronger the fiends become. And some particularly swinging demons decided that no one ordered them to, and in general it was dull and cramped in hell, so they had to move to live on Earth. And by move to live, they meant capture human countries and turn their inhabitants into slaves, and then they can repeat that, but with heaven. Lucifer himself took exception to the situation and tried to crush such destructive tendencies in bud, but suddenly he couldn't, and eventually discovered that there was a civil war going on in hell against him, which threatened to escalate into a war against earth and heavens, and decided that, since everything was so bad, he needed to ask for help from seraphims. Seraphims, who for some reason hadn't been following what was going on in hell at all until that moment, were even more freaked out by this turn of events than by the fall. I mean, they all fell into a huge panic, because, as it turned out, they weren't made for war, and literally so. When local God created the seraphims, for some reason he did not foresee the possibility that they would have to fight at all, and as a result, none of his first servants had any idea how to fight war at all. In the end, they couldn't think of anything better than to appoint Adam as general of heavenly army, instruct him to create this very army, because yes, at that point in time they didn't even have any army at all, and defeat the hellish legions. And, tellingly, Adam, who had never been a great commander at all, still coped with the task, hastily gathering a heavenly militia of mortal warriors who had gone to heaven, and there were plenty of them. He immediately rushed with them to hell to cut out the infernal spawn, where he got his ass kicked. Enemy generals really turned out to be fucking strong. When the direct onslaught failed, Adam thought about it and decided that since they were drawing their strength from souls of sinners they owned, they should hit them right in the rear, cutting out most of the sinners there, which he did, but it didn't do any good. Sinners in hell turned out to be immortal. Then Adam went straight to Sarah and started begging. I mean, asking her for the power to destroy souls of sinners. Sarah was stunned by such a request, and at first categorically refused, but under pressure of Adam's rather convincing arguments, she finally gave up and, reluctantly, blessed weapons of the heavenly militia. And, after second raid, infernal warlords noticeably lost in their forces, after which Adam Stark crushed their troops. He was ready to wipe them all out, but demons, realizing that they were fucked, made the most reasonable decision possible. They surrender and ask for peace. Moreover, they guessed right to request it directly from seraphims. And when seraphims received requests, they immediately ordered Adam to stop his offensive. He was, to put it mildly, very unhappy with that order, but he always obeyed the will of seraphims, and this time was no exception. After that, there were proceedings from category of who, where, why, and how to solve this. All the most distinguished demons were quickly executed by their own, but then the question arose of how to prevent such bullshit from happening in the future. The Seraphim Council did not like Adam's just fucking wipe them out option, and Lucifer, along with Lilith, whose role in this mess is generally unclear, defended their subjects. Adam himself, for whom that war was not a fun event at all, was not satisfied that seraphims were going to put everything on brakes, rightly believing that if they didn't take action, sooner or later this fuckery would happen again. However, back then seraphims did not give a damn about his opinion, and having concluded a number of formal agreements with Lucifer and demons, they calmed down on this, and they disbanded the heavenly army, arguing that since the threat was over, the army was no longer needed. But they gave Adam the title of Archangel for special merits, so to speak. That would have been the end of the story if Adam, who I suspect suffered from what is now called PTSD as a result of the war, had not decided that Lucifer cannot be trusted and that hell needed to be looked after, which is exactly what he did. And about 500 years later, he discovered signs of another uprising, and he went to Sarah on carpet, and he explained to her that it was impossible to let this matter take its course, and that something had to be done. Though she grimaced, she acknowledged Adam's point, and asked him what was his suggestion. And he suggested create an army of exorcists who would periodically descend and purge hell from the excessive sinners, thereby crushing any attempt by demons to rebel in the bud, because they draw their strength from souls of sinners. Therefore, the fewer sinners, the weaker the hell spawns, and the weaker they are, the less likely they are to start a new uprising. To say that Sarah was not thrilled with such a plan is a huge understatement. Adam had never seen Sarah so emotional in his life, before or since. She screamed, waved her arms, and even cursed a couple of times. It seemed to Adam that she would throw her desk at him in a little while. She didn't, but she kicked him out the door. It took some time before she summoned him back to her place. She was more gloomy than a rainy night when she said that she had discussed this issue with Lucifer and came to the conclusion that Adam, to her greatest regret, was right, and she announced the conditions under which Adam would work with purges. Purges, or exterminations, should take place once every 10 years. To do this, Adam will create an army of exorcists. No one should know about the purges except her, the exorcist, and Adam himself. And that's about it, actually. Adam was only glad of this, and even a hard look that Sarah gave him didn't bother him too much. Not too much. As time passed, the rate of growth of Earth's population slowly grew, and with it grew the rate of filling hell as well. And just recently, Adam received information that Lilith had somehow found a way to strengthen sinners, so that they too began to pose a threat to the angels by themselves. And Adam was going to go to Sarah and discuss this problem, at the same time suggesting that exterminations be made annual. He was about going to see her today. But, as you can guess, he didn't make it in time. And now I'm sitting in his gorgeous, though not too pompous, apartment, munching on some cereal, digesting all this information and thinking, what the hell should I do? It's a very interesting question, you know. It would seem that you do what is required of you, and that's it. Well, there, go to high authorities and say, well, everything is bad. We need to move timing of the purges so that hell does not rise. It's a simple and logical step at first glance, but as it often happens, there's one but I'm a fucking cartoon character, a negative cartoon character. And what I'm going to do here is present it in this very cartoon as something utterly bad and disgusting. For what I am going to get killed at the end of the season. I crumpled already empty cereal box and threw it in dumpster. 3 points. By the way, I need to take out trash. So where was I? Oh, yes, my death at the end of first season of Hazbin Hotel. Which, obviously, I would like to avoid. Well, we figured out my goal for foreseeable future, and now I need to figure out how to achieve it. Can I simply not go to hell? I mean, if I'm not there, then I won't be able to die there, right? Well, yeah, but my superiors and my subordinates won't understand such a step, sir. I am the general of heavenly army, the spearhead of God, and like any spearhead, I must be at the very forefront of attack. This is, in fact, my responsibility. Is there any way I can get rid of it? Theoretically, yes, but it will look a bit suspicious, because Adam used to take on such work with enthusiasm, and such a sudden change in behavior may raise questions from the same Sarah, who is not only a seraphim, but also knows Adam like her own palm. He has lived by her side for 10,000 years. What if she decides to dig deeper and realizes that Adam is kind of fake, and she will incinerate me on the spot, in order to avoid troubles, so to speak. No, wait, let's take a break and try to conduct a reconnaissance. I mean, let's remember what happened in cartoon and how much time is left before Starvet's events. The annual exterminations haven't started yet. As I said, Adam was just going to raise that issue today. And that doesn't really mean anything to me, because it's not known from the series how many years the exterminations have been going on. Maybe they've only been there for a dozen years, or maybe a few millennia. Who knows? So, okay, by what other signs can I determine, at least offhand, how many years are there before the events of the series? I remember that Charlie was already born about 200 years ago. What? She's already 200 years old. Although, why I'm so surprised? I'm talking about a mortal daughter of Lucifer and Lilith. For her 200 years is still like childhood. So, when is Lilith supposed to come to Adam and make some deal? Like hell I know. I don't even know what that deal was about, because second season hadn't been released yet when I got here. Anyway, fuck knows when, but events of series should start relatively soon. Lilith hasn't made that mysterious deal yet. So I definitely have at least 7 years, because that's exactly how long she was absent from hell. It's not such a short time, and in that much time I could have done something. But what exactly? Fuck, I can't really focus on one thing because of worries. My thoughts are tossing from side to side like on boat. So once again, my main intermediate goal is not to die at hands of one-eyed lowly at the end of battle for freaking hotel. I won't be able to avoid that battle. Though why not? I just need to prevent this battle from happening at all. I mean, why did it happen in the first place? Yes, because of Adam. If he hadn't threatened to attack Charlie's hotel at the end of that trial, there wouldn't have been a fight at all. So, I'm going to significantly bury the hatchet of war between Charlie and me. And that's it. My problem is solved. Go fuck yourself, one-eyed Lolas with holy metal daggers. By the way, about holy metal, it will be necessary to make a talk to my Exorcists so that they don't throw weapons around, because it's no good giving our enemies weapons with which they can kill us. My Exorcist. Fuck. That's right. I'm Adam now, the main dick of all paradise, a swearer, a bore, and just an asshole. And now that I think about it, isn't there a lot of swearing in my mind? I don't remember being such a swearer in my previous life. It's the influence of Adam himself, no less. I should start watching my tongue. And speaking of Adam, where did he go? It's quite obvious that God put me in his body, but where did his soul, consciousnness, or whatever went there? His memories are here with me, and it looks like his habits are too. Look how many swearings I gave out earlier. Have we merged together into a single entity? Or, rather, did God merge us? Well, freak it now. I don't want to be that asshole. Damn, could someone have asked me before poking me in here? Oh, yes, God asked. I guess he fucked me up after all, right? Oh, well, he's a god. He knows best. Probably. By the way, about best. Go ahead. Fix. Help. Guide on the right path. Do what you have to do. You'll figure out the rest on spot. And now go. And remember, my blessing is with you. These are his words that are firmly embedded in my mind. He wanted me to fix something and help someone. He didn't specify who to help or what to fix. Although, considering where I've ended up, it's not too hard to guess. So, Charlie Morningstar, the daughter of you-know-who, no, not Voldemort, the Princess of Hell, and nominal main character of you-know-what. She wants to stop annual exterminations, which is why she opened her. She will hotel for rehabilitation of sinners. At the same time, she has no idea how exactly to rehabilitate them, and whether it is possible in principle. At the end of the first season, it turned out that yes, it is indeed possible, but she didn't have time to find out about it. Season was over. Well, I don't know how I'm supposed to relate to this character. On one hand, her intentions seem to be noble, but what exactly is her plan? Gather sinners in one place and have friendly gatherings? Well, excuse me, but this plan is shit. How is she going to rehabilitate sinners if she has no idea what it takes? Is she going to find out by scientific poking at random? Damn, it looks like she's really going to use a random poke method. I can't blame her, though, because even seraphims don't know by what criteria souls go to heaven or hell. And, by the way, why the hell don't seraphims know the criteria by which souls are divided between heaven and hell? Didn't they create this whole system? Or was it God who did it, but in the end just forgot to explain how this shit even works? And did forget to mention that sinners can atone for their sins? God Almighty, if you can hear me, please send to your seraphim's children a sign that redemption of sins is possible, because I don't think they'll listen to me. I said, folding my hands in a prayerful gesture. God didn't answer. Well, that was expected, I guess. He's kind of busy keeping the darkness out of this world or something. If I understood correctly from that episode with the red shit, well, we can't expect God to do all the work, can we? Meanwhile, while I was thinking about all this, I managed to take a shower, and now I was looking at myself in the mirror. Contrary to expectations, there's no beer belly on this body. In fact, under that shapeless hoodie, which made Adam seem fat, and under gray armor of Exorcist and athletic, toned body was revealed. It looks like the golden standard of male body, from which ancient Greeks sculpted their statues. And his device, if you'll excuse me for details, was just like the vice of Black Overlord. Well, not surprising. He needed to create an entire population almost from scratch in a natural way, so to speak. My face wasn't particularly noticeable, though. And besides, Adam hadn't shaved for a long time. So I took an electric razor and started getting rid of stubble. And dear Mom, local razors are great. I just ran that thing over my cheeks and chin a couple of times. And that's it. My face is as smooth as a baby's. And you don't even need any aftershave gel. That's made in paradise for you. This is not my face. Damn it, that's not my face. My hand made a fist of its own accord and swung at mirror, but I suppressed a flash of anger. Piece of glass was not to blame for my current situation. And my situation was, well, not exactly a bad one, but it wasn't exciting either. After all, I'm now the antagonist of an adult cartoon, and not the most morally appealing one at that. Although, hand on heart, even in show Adam was not so bad, and even here he cannot be called embodiment of evil. An unpleasant type and rude guy? Yes, that's true, but bad manners are not a sin. Doesn't respect women? Not good, of course. But to be fair, he didn't lay a hand on them, and he didn't drag anyone into bed against their will. Well, okay, he beat Charlie, but that was in battle, and in war no one cares if you're man or woman. And that girl he mentioned about in the first episode, he convinced her with words to have sex, and not rudely led her away or somehow intimidated and threatened her. What's that? He genocide sinners? Well, forgive me, but we're talking about sinners. About scum who will kill, rape, and do other horrible things during their lifetime. What? Redemption? Well, they haven't redeemed themselves, have they? They don't even think about it. Maybe some of them deserve a second chance indeed. But something tells me that most of them deserve nothing but final death. Just take a look on Valentino. And so, looking through Adam's memories with an outside glance, so to speak, I can conclude that Adam, of course, is still an asshole, but also he is still far from being the last scum of the entire universe. Against background of same Valentino, he generally seems like a decent person. He doesn't rape anyone, doesn't raise his hands against women, protects heaven from hell's spawn, doesn't use drugs, and even drinks moderately, damn it. He wasn't even kick out veggie from heaven himself. He rather stood by and silently approved his subordinate's punishment. I clenched my hands into fists and, realizing that I had been staring at that mirror for 10 minutes, spat into sink and began to dress in clean clothes. Even if this episode with veggie was kind of justified from the point of view of heavenly orders, it was still disgusting. This punishment was disproportionately harsh compared to offense. Well, she didn't kill one little demon. Well, F freak with him. But nope, Luke gouged out her eye, cut off her wings, took away her halo, and threw her into hell. And Adam silently approved this. I couldn't help but growl at that thought. Did God command me to correct and guide on the right path? Well, then I'll start with my girls. Like hell, I'm going to have Veggie banished to hell. One of the most loyal soldiers in paradise certainly didn't deserve this. And she certainly did not deserve hatred and contempt of her sisters in arms. This is not the way of the Jedi. Ugh. I mean, it's not godly. So hold on, bitches. Your daddy will make one big and friendly family out of you. Ahem. I bring myself somewhere ahead, when meanwhile I had on agenda a trip to the high authorities and a conversation on the topic. 10 years between exterminations is too long. Let's make them annual. And the question arises in front of me. Should I even go and raise this topic? Because, on one hand, according to cartoon, exterminations are bad, wrong, and generally futile. But on the other hand, unlike in show, the threat from hell here is quite real and relevant right now, and exterminations are quite a working option to neutralize this very threat. There's still a hell of a lot of time before launch of a working rehabilitation program for sinners, and it's not fact that it will appear at all. In fact, I need to be very careful about what I've learned from the show, because even though there's a lot of stuff that matches with what I know, it doesn't mean that this universe is exactly the same as an old girl Vivian's head. What if Charlie here is not a kind and naive girl, but a hardened schemer and sadistic psychopath, similar in character to Alastair from the pilot episode? All Adam here knew about Charlie was that she existed, and that was it. What a number it will be if it turns out that I was thrown not into world of original, but into world of some kind of fanfic. Besides, it's not like there's any knowledge in canon that will be particularly useful to me right now. So what am I about? Oh, yes. Should there be annual exterminations or not? If there are no annual exterminations, then the whole canon will be broken to hell. At least, Charlie will not be so frantically looking for ways to redeem sinners and, as a result, may not find them. And even without them, Lilith is likely to really start a war against heavens, if what the local Adam knows is true. Is this, by any chance, a departure from canon events? Damn, I'm not sure. They didn't really tell us about Lilith. Damn, why couldn't I live long enough to see next season? Huh? Oh! Well, I have information about hypothetical upcoming uprising of hell, and the annual exterminations should absolutely prevent it. And, the safety of heavens, which is now my new home, is kind of more precious to me than the lives of even 1,000,000 sinners, who, if given a chance, will gladly go to war here and turn paradise into a branch of hell. On the other hand, the show, from which this world is kind of copied, clearly showed that exterminations of sinners is bad. This, they say, is genocide and hypocrisy on the part of heavens, and world in general is not black and white, and it is necessary not to destroy human souls, but to pity them and correct them. And, well, that's a pretty ambiguous message, in my humble opinion. Yes, I guess it featured characters who really deserve a chance at redemption. The same Sir Pennius actually rehabilitated himself at the end of season and went straight to heaven, and it even seems like he deserved it. And Angel Dust doesn't look like a complete bastard, although it's clear that he's mired in lust in broadest sense of that word. He's a sensualist who doesn't know measure in anything at all and gives himself up to all kinds of pleasures with his head. But after all, the exact show featured characters like Valentino, and according to the logic of creators, should he also be understood, forgiven, and helped to rehabilitate himself? Is it even possible? He is, for a second, an overlord, that is, the one who owns a large number of sinner souls. Well, in other words, just a slave owner. And it would be fine. There's still some way to mitigate this case. They say it's different. It's just how things are done in hell, and it's not really that scary as it sounds. But haven't we all seen how he treats Angel? So, can he also be redeemed somehow? Or is he still possible and even necessary to be slaughtered? Or, say, Carmilla Carmine. That's definitely a gray character, in every sense of a word. It seems that she is an weapon baron, and an overlord in general, but she sincerely cares about her family, and she wanted to avoid a war with heavens, and called other overlords to discuss the issue of exterminations, although there she could just try to save her investments. In general, I don't know how I should treat her. Of course, if we put aside the fact that she is the main supplier of weapons to enemy army, and therefore is a priority target for elimination. My eyes fell on the clock. 5 minutes to 9 a.m. It popped into my head that meeting with Sarah had already been agreed in advance and was scheduled for 10. It takes about 10 minutes to get to her domain. Thanks, Wings. But damn, I don't want to. I'd like at least a day or two to adapt and think about it, because moving to Seraphim without a clear plan of action is a lousy idea, no matter how you look at it. Not go to the meeting at all? It won't work. If I don't show up on time, Sarah will just teleport me to herself, which the Adam past user shamelessly used when he was too lazy to cross over to her on his own 2 feet, and then our conversation will take place anyway. Should I try to reschedule that meeting? Sarah will be unhappy, and she won't hesitate to express her displeasure. But if I somehow brush it off, for example, by the fact that I decided to collect more data on the topic, no, she'll teleport me to her anyway and start sorting things out. Adam used to shirk work if he didn't consider it too important, though not very often. In general, it's a bummer. I'll have to go to a meeting with the big boss anyway. And the most fantastically disgusting thing is that I do not know what to say to her. Try to convince her that rehabilitation of sinners is possible? Yeah, and then she'll send me to Lucifer for permanent residence. Although, maybe she won't do that right away. According to Adam's recollections, she's not such a fan of drastic measures. But even so, how am I going to explain and prove all this to her? Should I say that I saw all this in a cartoon when I was still living in another universe? I have no idea at all how she will react to my statement that I am actually a random soul with amnesia, which her God picked up literally out of nowhere and put into this body, and I don't want to check at all. Maybe then I can convince Sarah that exterminations is no longer necessary, but that's the thing, they are indeed necessary at the moment. In cartoon, the threat of hell towards heaven seemed far-fetched. I mean, what kind of threat can sinners pose if they simply can't do anything to exorcists? Like, nothing at all, and only with the help of holy metal did they have a real chance to fight back. Here, however, this threat is no longer far-fetched, but quite substantial. There's a precedent for an attempted uprising of hellspawns, and right now Lilith is stirring up something with her songs, calling on sinners to fight, and from which their stats seem to rise up. She's like some kind of level 80 bard. And I need to do something about it, because I'm Adam now, and it's my direct responsibility to keep the threat from hell under control. I'm a motherfucking general of heavenly army, defender of paradise. This is my damn job. Exterminations, Vipsy says, are bad, and maybe she's even right to some extent. But what am I really supposed to do now? Sit and wait until demons start breaking into the pearly gates? I'm not really in favor of preemptive strikes, but in this case, it's a self-evident solution. Damn. God, I don't know what to do right now. Maybe you give me some sign? I asked into the air, not really expecting an answer, but suddenly, doorbell rang. I blinked in surprise and immediately went to open the door, which revealed a gray angel in Exorcist uniform, just without a helmet. Lute, what are you doing here? I asked. Good morning, sir. I came to make sure that you don't miss meeting with Lady Sarah. My stressed-out brain, or whatever the angels have in its place, finally deigned to load up and gave out data on topic. Lute, a lieutenant of Exorcist army, whom Adam once made his deputy. Executive, fanatical, hardcore. For Adam of past, perfect performer. For Adam of present me, just another headache that I don't know what to do about. Well, as you can see, you don't need to wake me up. I made a poker face, realizing that I wouldn't be able to delay the inevitable and that I'd have to figure something out along the way. Are you ready? I asked, remembering in time that Adam was going to go to Boss Carpet with Lute, as I had informed her in advance. Yes, sir. Good, then let's go, I said, locking the door and heading down the lawn. As it turned out, Adam's home, which I initially mistook for an apartment, was actually a separate cottage. Not too large, but luxurious enough to make a casual passerby realize that an important person lives here. Heh, it's strange. Knowing Adam, I assumed that he would live in some kind of pompous palace with a garish and eye-popping facade. But this house looked somehow simple. Well, some celebrities had much more pompous houses. Oh, well, the first day in paradise has begun. I'm not so happy about that.